am Jan Hill, a member of the SAI Advisory Board, and I am so happy to have you here today. We have a wonderful panel. We will have a short Q&A afterwards, so while you're listening, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Our first speaker is Kimberly Meredith. Kimberly is a world-renowned medical intuitive medium, international podcaster, and author of Awakening to the Fifth Dimension, Discovering the Soul's Path to Healing. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here today. So I'd like to talk about awakening our consciousness. And I wrote a book called The Awakening to the Fifth Dimension, Discovering the Soul's Path to Healing. But how that came about is me channeling the awakening to the fifth dimension, how we all can be in this higher consciousness. I had 2 near-death experiences back in 2013, which channeled me into this higher dimensional frequency, because it transformed me into what's called a vast blinking that goes on in my eyes, which is my way of communicating and transmuting information. We all have a way to transmute information into a higher consciousness, whether we've had a near-death experience or any experience that awakens us. I left my physical body. I entered into a state of peace and love when I went to the other side. I struggled with that because I wanted to stay over there, but I came back. When I returned into my physical body, I started transmuting these code frequencies. And then I was directed on my mission through Christ, God. We all can work with this frequency. It's an amazing frequency. It's a miracle frequency here to help and teach us, whether we call it the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, the 10th, 11th, or 12th, or whatever dimensional frequency. It's happening. It's here. I was discovered right in my apartment by scientists, teachers, many people. And I was flown in wheelchairs, documented by Dr. Norman C. Shealy, with abilities. Now, these abilities I was born with. I just had to go through the near-death experiences to awaken again. I truly believe that we all come in the world with abilities, and we can awaken them so we can survive the next 10 to 15 years. I know this because when we return completely into our own awakening through meditation, sitting in silence, helping our brothers and sisters, because what it's taught me is that being in service with, if you want to say, higher divine guidance, we learn to bridge the breakthrough, the leaving the ego. I always say ego or ego. And learning that we let the skepticism leave when we see, right? So how did people see? Seeing is believing, right? We can talk all day about awakening and consciousness, but when people see it, so when they came to look for me when they heard about me healing many people in my living room. And I was flown to Maryland and I was flown to Missouri and I did so many double-blind tests. Is it really Kimberly? No. It's the energy working through me, working through you when you're being used as a conduit, right? When they started seeing the third dimension, no, third dimension is worry and fear that you're going to stay sick or not do the work that they want to do. So many near-death experiences or any experiencer going through the shift, which we're in, when they started witnessing the work, yes, I speak to the afterlife, but when I hear somebody as a medical intuitive has cancer or a disease or finding the root cause, I work with Edgar Casey. The next step, they heard about me doing the healing, and I was discovered to have healing abilities. When you are stepping into your alignment, you feel what? Amazing. When they discovered after 30 blind tests on me at one institute, another 25 over here and there, when they started to see it, which is the fifth dimension and beyond, then they what? Believe it. And when they believe it, what happens? We make a shift. And when we make a shift, it is what? So be it. Hallelujah. The world starts to what? Move forward. And what happened is that my dear and beloved agent that crossed over, only a year after my book was published, he had heard me on a radio station. And I had said to a lady that had called in, I see that you have breast cancer in your left breast. And she was someone that was working with Susan Jacoman. And he had called me and said, I want to fly to New York City and speak to a publishing company, which was one of the biggest publishing companies in the world. And I went in and I did a reading on the owner of the company. And I said, I know that your husband has cancer. And she said, how do you know that? I said, I lost the hearing in my right ear when I had my near-death experience. And she said, you did? But I whisper, the Holy Spirit whispers in my left ear when I hear something that is very important, and I get a certain blink when someone has cancer. But I also get a message from Edgar Casey, and I know that your husband is going to live. And after I walked down the hall of this publishing company, I looked at the editor and I said, how do you think it went? And he looked at me and he goes, you'll know by the time you get home. I said, okay. And by the time I got home, which I'm not proud to say, I wasn't very strong. I had to go with an assistant in a wheelchair. I wasn't walking that well still. And by the time I got home, my agent was, I don't know if any of you know, Bill Gladstone. And he called me up and he said, I've got news for you, kid. And I said, what? And he said, they want to publish your book, but you also got Hay House and you also got Penguin Random House wants to publish it also. And I said, you're kidding me. And he goes, no. And he said, I never heard of that before, but here's the other news. And I'm like, what? He goes, they're flying in to see you in person at the Conscious Life Expo. And here's the thing about the Holy Ghost and the Spirit and about crossing over. Before I crossed over, when I was a little girl, I blinked and I got messages. And they went away because particular parental figures would abuse me and say, don't do that. I was raised in a religious family that didn't like that. And I don't know if any of you could relate to this, but this is I'm going to say it very short about consciousness and the awakening. When a couple of these executives came out to see me at the expo, I was pulling particular people up onto the stage, and they had tumors around their neck that were fairly large. I don't know if you know what goiters are or lymph nodes, and it's in my book, and I did more testing on this too. And I would activate my hands and I'd say, would you like it removed? And they would say, yes. And I would start speaking in Hebrew. I'm half Jewish. So I'd start saying a Jewish. So one of the editors was sitting in the front of the row and he was like this. I'll never forget. I looked out and he went, and it just, I said, say you're in the fifth dimension. And he said, I'm in the fifth dimension, the person on the table. And I said, and he took a deep breath and we had it on camera and it just dissolved instantly off. And everybody in the audience was going, like that and praying. And it was just so incredible. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about this is that anybody and all can speed up their healing. And I'm getting chills right now because I just want, if anything, and I know I probably have to go, but I just want to make sure that all of you know that you all deserve to have a miracle healing. And you all deserve to understand that you can be in this dimension, whether it's the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, the 10th, the 12th, moving out of the third dimensional conscious frequency. It doesn't mean that you don't take your vitamins. It doesn't mean that you don't see your doctor. I work with lots of doctors. And doctors come to me because I'm a medical intuitive holistic practitioner, but I won't want to ever take away the name healer. Praise God. And I wanted to say that, and I'm not touching on everything, but making sure that you don't drink bad water. Janet, is my time up? Okay, okay, okay. I want to make sure that there's certain things and chemicals and things that are going on in our world right now. So for an example, thank you. What's 3D? What's 5D? What's our consciousness? Even in our food has a consciousness. Like for example, like this pen has a consciousness. I know it sounds bizarre. This glass has a consciousness. Our words have consciousness. So just here's an example. Every day, waking up and saying some things like, I am a multidimensional being. I choose to have love in my life. I am love. I am healed. I am the light. Instead of saying, gosh, I am never going to get healed. That's a third dimensional word. I am not going to make my rent. So those are 3D words. Okay, drinking out of this, would this be fifth dimensional or 3D? What do you think, Janet? Okay, so this is glass, right? So this is fifth dimensional. If I was going to hold up plastic, that would be third dimensional. So what I do with my eyes is I scan everything. So I know when people do sessions with me, even they come on, they still go to sometimes herbalists and things, but that's okay. What I do is my brain is sped up so fast that I will go through every single thing and I will read. So after my NDE, I came back and I channel Casey, but I do this channeling where I can screen every single thing to see what is 3D and what is 5D. We want our homes to be fifth dimensional, like having filters on our sink, having filters in our shower. So awakening to fifth dimensional consciousness means expanding yourself with the one. So we can not only awaken our telomeres, but our DNA. Does that make sense to everybody? On? That makes sense? Okay. So they're just channeling that right now. Okay. Also, saying yes. So saying yes, I'm healed. Yes to the new relationship. Yes to the soulmate. Yes to my relationship I'm with my husband for the last 20 years can be ignited into a higher dimensional frequency. Yes to opening my heart to miracles. Yes, I deserve a miracle. So just yes, 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 and eliminating the no's. Does that make sense too? Okay. So, awakening our consciousness, does it have to be difficult? My God. Okay, there. Yes, I do. No. Awakening our consciousness can be fun. Okay. Am I a serious healer? I really am. Do I come off being silly? Of course I do. I love having fun. And can awakening your consciousness be fun? Yes. Yes, it can be fun. And does God like you to be childlike? What do you think, Jeremy? Yes. And so what they're saying is, I choose the frequency. We all have frequencies. Everybody has a different frequency. I choose the frequency of unconditional love. All of us make mistakes. All of us are learning here, like Norma said. All of us are going to move in and out of different relationships with people. Some people are going to feel a little more 3D, like the gossip, or they feel like, all of that. But we don't want to hurt them, but maybe we just feel more of over in this area a little bit right now. We want to love them and forgive them, but maybe they're in the third dimensional crowd and we're moving more in the fifth dimensional frequency crowd. So there is a shift going on, a rapid shift right now. So the guides are saying that we don't leave the 3D baton totally, but we want to help them, but not so much all the time to get in that energy frequency. We are moving rapidly. As I talk about this, and very simple in my book, the Fifth Dimension book, but I am working on a new book. But the Fifth Dimension book is a good start. It's on audio also, but it's not a race of who's better than who. When you cross over the other side, as you guys know, when you come back, there is a very big, I know for me it was, transmission of a soul connection, a soulmate frequency connection. And soulmates are on a lot of different levels. There are soulmate friends, there are soulmate family, and there are soulmate energetic communicators. So all I can say is this: when you find somebody that's having a really hard time, my God, I guess I was thinking really fast. We don't want to ditch them, but we want to help them bridge them into an understanding that we listen, we love, and we help boost them and activate them into this higher loving kindness, fifth dimensional frequency, which comes from the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is love and kindness and softness and gentleness. So I want to thank all of you for having me here today. This is my first time I've ever spoke at the conference, and I'm grateful to be here. And I want to make sure that you know where to get a hold of me. This is my book called Awakening to the Fifth Dimension of Discovering the Soul's Path to Healing.
That's wonderful. And we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. And if you need me, I'm at thehealingtrilogy.com.
Okay. But thank you so much. I got chills too. That was an amazing, amazing story. Thank you. All right. Our next speaker is Meredith Narissi. Meredith is the founder of Meredith's Healing Arts Enlightened Wellness. Meredith is an international presenter and author of Seven Veils: Mystical Secrets of a Feminine Path to Enlightenment. And Meredith?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm very grateful, Yvonne, in particular, for you accepting me. And like Kimberly, this is my first time presenting for you, but I'm very excited to share. So first of all, I'd like to say that I have a master's degree in education and art. I also am a board certified polarity therapist, a holistic spiritual healer, a Reiki master, and I love working in the spiritual realm to help people. And my book, Seven Veils, Mystical Secrets of the Feminine Path to Enlightenment, was written because I experienced a spiritual awakening. So I'd like to share with you something about that, if I may. So this started to happen to me in a very serious time in my life. And can you see the screen
Yes, we can. Thank you.
without being blocked?
We can see
So
it.
I was a professional belly dancer, and I owned a fitness studio, and I was kind of hyperkinetic. And the only way I could meditate was in the bathtub with quiet music and candles so that my body would relax and then my mind would follow. So this was a particularly difficult time. I was going through a divorce. My children were visiting their father states away, and I was very, very, very sad. So I'm crying, I'm feeling sad. And I had this awareness that I was not just a victim, that I also perpetrated some painful experiences, and that my children were suffering due to a divorce and perhaps my inability to love better. So I was really feeling a lot of sensation. And I started having this yearning to understand better. And my heart began to open, and the light was coming out of my heart as if there was a flashlight behind my heart. And when that happened, what happened was my heart felt like soul surgery. And I began to say, if there's a God, please let me know if there is a God. Because I had this Ebenezer Scrooge tour of my life where I saw that I was imperfect and I hadn't always been right. And so this yearning, a kind of repentance, a kind of willingness to see, granted me this experience. And what the light of my heart showed me was this beautiful world in a fisheye view where there was nature and trees and animals, and I became one with all of nature. And after that, Surprisingly, I was shot into this streaming light. I was going the speed of light until finally the light stopped. And it was this scintillating light containing so much love and so much beauty that I could not contain it in my body. And so I had no body. And I was one with the light. And the light spoke to me without words and said, all is forgiven. The universe is nothing but love. So this is a message that I'm sure other people that have experienced things like that has happened. So this changed, inspired me to become, a spiritual healer. I made a meditation, and I ended up, of course, writing a book. And it was based on my experience as being a belly dancer. Because when you spend a lot of time in the arts, especially dancing, you get a very deep understanding of somatic knowing, body knowing, embodiment of your wisdom. So I wrote the book, Seven Veils, and it's a template for how to practice so that you can perhaps move toward this enlightenment. So I speak to it in terms of veils. The first is the veil of denial, where we say, what are you denying yourself? Well, maybe you're denying yourself that you had no part in this suffering, and that maybe you should wake up and take a look. So the first veil is the veil of denial. After that, it's the veil of sensation. Now, all these stages are related to the chakras, the colors of the rainbow, yogi stages of enlightenment, Buddhist stages of enlightenment. Many mystical religions all talk about changes in these different venues. So in my book, I explore that more deeply. So in this veil, you awaken to mind, body. You awaken to the comings and goings, attachment and loss, and you start to feel things in a more sensual way that's not quite just a mental construct. So after that, you become able to observe not only your environment, but yourself and your true nature and the love that surrounds you. You begin to see things intuitively that you didn't see before. And you finally come to the recognition that most of the spiritual people that talk about here in this beautiful conference is that your essence, your true nature is love. And this is green, which we always think of the heart as red, but in the chakras it's green because this is where oxygen is exchanged, which comes from all the greenery on the earth. All the beautiful trees and everything that's green gives us this opportunity to breathe this precious breath. So we're not having an echo and narcissus kind of love unrequited. We recognize that we are born from love, our essence is love, and this is our true nature and connection to the universe. So then as you progress, you enter the blue veil, and that's the veil of integration. So, okay, your love, your divine love, your nature is love. But what about your anger? What about your criticism? What about all the parts of you that are not quite healed? And what you find out is that healing is wholeness. The root of the word heal and health is whole. The same root as the word holy. So when you invite these parts of yourself back in, you invite them in for tea and sympathy. You realize you don't only have fear, you also have bravery. You don't only have kindness, you also have judgmental thoughts. You don't only have courage, you have doubt. And you need to integrate. You need to create wholeness. You need to bring everything together. And that gives you a kind of integrity, which makes you a person of morality. So I believe integration gives you an opportunity to promise to be your best. And the next and last of the seven veils is the white veil of stillness, peace, and enlightenment. And as many people will tell you, it's in the stillness that you begin to listen. The idea that prayer is speaking to God and meditation is listening. So when you could sit still and not abandon yourself, things begin to come to you. It's not because you're making it happen. It's because you're surrendering and you're allowing it to happen. And if you're patient and open-hearted and open-minded, the shift that I saw in my awakening awareness is that reality is much different than you might imagine. It's not limited to the senses. It encourages you to use a kind of inner knowing. You start having synchronicities. You start having all sorts of amazing experiences to give you intuition that not only helps you, but you can help heal others with this loving kindness. So how much time do I have left? Okay, so this is me. And this is my book, which is on Amazon. And you write 7 Veils, Mystical Secrets, and you'll find the book. And this is an example of Reiki healing or polarity therapy and all the beautiful things that I love to do to help people. These are some of the things that I do. You could look up Meredith's Healing Arts. And I love to do one-on-one therapy. I do it on Zoom and also in person, of course. And I teach workshops on things like dream analysis and handwriting analysis, any way you can get to know yourself. And as Kimberly said, playfulness, childlikeness, joy is a phenomenal way to integrate all this knowing. It's it's kind of a secret avenue to getting to the imagination, which leads you to higher realms and more understanding. So I want to thank everyone for listening. Please buy my book and connect with me. I would be greatly honored. And thank you again, SIA, for the beauty of all these amazing people connecting and sharing what is often not allowed to be said. Thank you
Well,
so
thank you,
much.
Meredith. We appreciate it so much. That was very inspiring.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our panel is Jeremy McDonald. Jeremy is a quantum healer, transformational speaker, and host of Mystic Dialogue. He's the best-selling author of The Sovereign Mindset, Unlocking Your Divine Potential. Welcome, Jeremy.
Well, thanks so much for having me here and allowing me to share here on this beautiful conference. Thanks for having this space. And so I just wanted to kind of start off with a little bit about my story so you understand where all this information came from. And so I started meditation probably in 1997, and I was about 23 years old, maybe a little older than that. And fast forward, I had worked as a healer and an energy healer, but also in corporate America at the same time. So you can just imagine working 2 worlds. And fast forward to about 2012, my mother transitioned into spirit. And that was on January 9th of 2012. And I had what is called a shared death experience with her. And to kind of describe this shared death experience just very quickly, is that I'd spent the night holding her hand. And if anybody knows, I was born to a 16-year-old mother in 1974. So she was my best friend. She was also the person I traveled the spiritual world together. She was my one that taught me Reiki. She was a shaman and a nurse, and she had done all kinds of stuff in the energy healing world. So that morning of January 9th, I went to move from the chair I was sitting in to move over to the couch and fall asleep just for roughly about an hour until I got this feeling, that feeling you get when you're a teenager and your mother's trying to wake you up. And I just had that feeling like I was about 15 or 16 years old. And my mother's like, Jer, if you're going to say goodbye, right now is the time to do it. And I was like, at the 16-year-old, yeah, I'll wake up here in a second. You can just imagine this thoughts going through your mind because you're kind of in this half interesting energy in both worlds here in this moment. And then her assistant that used to work for her knocked on the door in her hospice room and said she'd like to say goodbye. So I ended up waking up and getting up and letting her in and kissing my mother goodbye and saying I love you, Mom, and I know you'll be watching over me. And she had actually said that the night before. She says, the last word she said to me is, I will always watch over my son. So here I am in my late 30s at this time. And I went and laid back down to go to sleep. And the nurses came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Mr. McDonald, your mother has just passed." And just before that had happened, I started to feel this. There were streamers up in the room, and I could just feel them flapping against the wall. It was like this wind of, there was no fans in the room, there was no heavy air conditioning, and there was just like this wind that came into the room that was just very peaceful. And I could feel my body and my energy raise up out of my body. And I had no idea what was happening. I just was like, I knew this was an experience that was beautiful and so profound. And I didn't fully understand at the time, but I remember starting to walk around the room, and my mother's body was lying there, but I was starting to get ready. And I was actually in the middle of getting done with my very first book I wrote called Peace Be Still. And I remember walking around and I'm thinking to myself in my mind, "Mom, you're not going to get to read the book." And I hear her almost as clear as day, like as if she hadn't just passed away, say, "Jer, I already know what's in the book. I taught you the things that you wrote in that book." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And I'm having a conversation with her as if she had not even left, until it starts to sink in that even though I can see her body, I can feel her the entire time. So fast forward a week, we have her memorial. Roughly about 200 people show up. I mean, it was just interesting how it all just flowed together. And at the time, I was a trainer for MetLife. The MetLife blimp hovered over her memorial. And people asked me, "Did I set that up?" I'm like, "I'm not that important at MetLife." It was just kind of this interesting experience. And I don't have enough time to tell you all the things that happened. But then the very next day, I was in the shower and I felt her step into my body and say, "This is what heaven feels like, Jer." And I lost all anxiety, all pain, all feelings of tension in my body. It was completely gone. And then I said to her, I said, "Mom, you got to give this energy to the grandpa. You got to give this energy to this person. You got to give this energy to this person." I started thinking outside of the moment that I was having in this experience. And I heard her very clearly say, "They're not ready, Jer, to feel this or see this." And so what that taught me is that I was outside of myself trying to give people an experience that I was having in this moment. And what that taught me is this: there is an external part of us that's always wanting to be in everybody else's garden, their Garden of Eden, trying to convince them of what we're experiencing. And that's a very codependent way of looking at it. And that's one of the things that she was trying to show me. Because the energy, we all know, we talk about it, there's the Holy Spirit, oneness, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, it flows through all of us. Because in that moment when she said, "This is what heaven feels like," I felt like I was the drop in the ocean. And it was flowing like the ocean, in and out, and in and out. But I was also the entire ocean, because we're all connected. Now we know that on the intellectual level. But when we really feel it, and that's what these experiences do for us, when we really feel it, it changes the dynamics of what you're seeing. And the reality is we're stuck in this idea that everything is outside of us. We're taught that God is outside of us. We're taught that the energy of the universe is outside of us. We're taught that we need the government, our schools, and everything else. And the reality is they are a reflection of who we are on the inside. So the keys to your kingdom, so to speak, is all within. And when I realized that the heaven she was showing me was actually within, so when I go within to love myself, when I go within to show my manifestations or whatever it is I'm praying for, then I'm actually literally connecting myself to what I was already connected to in the first place, but I'm no longer separating myself. I'm now connecting to all of you. I'm now connecting to everybody in the world. And when I'm literally out in other places, then I'm out of balance. And so this just continued on for many, many years. Now it's been 14 years later, and I've went through all kinds of experiences. What I realized is the shared death experience, yes, it's cool, but it's not the important part of what happened. It's who I became as a result of that. So fast forward many years, I'm on a cruise. I build conferences on cruise ships, and my very first one, we were doing a healing circle. And I did this healing, the group of us did a healing on this man. And I remember my mother put her hands through my hands, and I literally started feeling energy flowing. And nobody knew that this man had a brain tumor in his brain. And so he called my friend Jessica later on that helped me put on the conference and said, "My tumor has shrunk in half." So then I started saying, well, it was my mother. It was my mother. It was my mother that did that. She put her hands on me. It's obviously her. And then she finally said, it's all of us. We are all one. So you were just allowing that energy to flow through your physical self to work with his physical self. And as Kimberly was saying earlier, he said yes. And so that was his allowing, that giving and receiving, that ocean that we were talking about. So the keys are inside. And then it came to COVID happen, and I started really looking inside. So I'd already spent all these years meditating, and I already spent all this time processing my life and starting to look at everything. And I realized that the opening of the doorway is within you. And then during COVID, because I didn't really have anything else to do, I would sit and get quiet. Now I've stopped using the word meditation because it really freaks people out. What I say is, I want you to hang out with yourself for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and just breathe in through your nose very slowly and out through your mouth. And this is what I did through COVID. And I would notice my energy would be next door with my best friend, out in Phoenix with my family, with my brothers and my sister out there, my worrying about what was going on in Washington, worrying about what's going on over here, worrying about the future, stressing about what happened in the past. Well, when you're anywhere other than right here and right now, you're not in your temple. You're not in your Garden of Eden. You've cast yourself out. You've got the flaming sword, and you're literally sitting there saying, don't come back in here. You're literally turning yourself into the enemy. But when you start to look within, that flow of eternal bliss and that eternal fulfillment is there. But the really cool part that I really started to understand is this, is through my mistakes, and I've made a lot of them, that they are the coolest opportunities. So when I make a mistake or when I start to fall out of balance, I get excited. When I've walked down the wrong road and I really realized that I started going down Interstate 75 and when I really should have been going down Interstate 95. I live in Florida, by the way. And I realized, whoa, you're way out of balance here. I don't start to criticize myself. I'm like, ooh, here's something new to learn. Because this is what my mother taught me in life, is this. And because everything that's happened to you in your life has led you to this point. Your parents, every experience. So there's wisdom that came through all these people you've interacted with because the universe is always talking to you. And one of the things she taught me is she taught me to color outside of the lines. And so she said, you can color outside of the lines, dear. She goes, here's what ends up happening when you color in the lines. She goes, outside the lines, you get to do whatever you want, but coloring in the lines allows you to manifest and create and ground the energy. I didn't even realize that she was teaching me how to manifest, because when you start to solidify what your prayers are about and really get into it, you really start to solidify and ground it, and that's the coloring in the lines. It's not the following of the rules. It's literally bringing it into matter and taking it out of that spiritual consciousness and then bringing it in here into the now of the moment, and why that's important to understand. And this is what I've really learned over since the beginning of COVID. You are greater than you could have possibly ever imagined. That's what the sovereign mindset is all about. This is what my next book is all about. You are greater than you could have ever imagined, because the embodiment of the divine energy is within you. You are divine royalty. And this is what she was trying to show me. Every time you minimize yourself and look down on yourself, every time you compare yourself to somebody else and say that you're a failure in comparison to them, or you should be further along than them, or they have the degrees that you have, that you should have finished college or whatever, when you should on your life, you take yourself out of balance. And this is what she was trying to show me. She was trying to show me that you are not only the drop in the ocean, but you are the whole ocean. And so are all of you. And this is where the blessings come in, because we start to go, oh, well, I haven't had a near-death experience, or I haven't had a shared death experience, or I haven't had an out-of-body experience. I was on the Jeff Mara podcast, and my friend Virginia Drake was on it a few years ago as well. And everybody kept on messaging me, can you show me how to go out of body? I'm like, you need to learn how to stay in your body first. Because our mind and energy is always outside of ourselves. And when we're always outside of ourselves, we're not within. It doesn't mean you don't interact and engage with the world around you, because you're not only the drop in the ocean, but you are the whole ocean. And this is what I've learned, is to start to go within, start to breathe, start to hang out with yourself. And so this is where you start getting this inner knowing. And so I've taught psychic development, mediumship for many, many years. And I just taught one. I hadn't taught one in 10 years, and I just taught one last year. And I decided that we're going to call it psychic development. It's called soul development. Because one of the things I heard years ago is the psychic is one that can connect themselves to their higher soul, to their soul, and they can connect and work with other people's higher self and soul. So there's an inner knowing in you that when you go within, then you're going to know what you need to do. You're going to know what you need to say. You're going to know where you need to be and how to do it, because it's constantly guiding you. It's constantly connecting you. It's constantly connecting to the angels or whatever you want to call to, whatever you're prone to. There's a power and force within you that is so strong, but it comes from going within, loving yourself. And I'm not talking about just getting your nails done and all that other kind of stuff, but that's a part of it. Taking care of yourself physically is a part of it. Taking care of your family is a part of it. And loving those around you, because when you love yourself, when you really start to empower yourself, then you're by default empowering other people. And this is what she showed me. And one of the other things she showed me is she's always there. So your loved ones, when you start to feel them around, or you start memories of them start to pop up, that means that they're literally around you. Those have passed on to the other side, because this is one interesting story that I'm going to kind of wrap up, because I know I have just about a minute left. Is my mother in 2014, 2 years after she had passed away, her dog was still with me. We called her Shaman Dog. And people would say, your mother's eyes are looking through her. I swear that your eyes. Well, one year at Christmas, my mother went to a medium that didn't know her in life and said, I need you to go and buy my son an Archangel Michael painting. And she said, well, Lori, I don't have the money. She said, don't worry about it, taken care of. Next day, she got a bunch of clients. She was able to buy me this painting. And that painting was my Christmas present from my mother. Now, this woman didn't know that I literally had the Archangel Michael around me since I was about 5 years old. So it was a sign to me that my mother was saying, I'm still here with you, and I'm keeping my promise. I am always with you, and I am always watching of you, because that's the energy of the universe. It's always plotting to do you good because it's within you. And I would love to stay connected with all of you. My website is just my name, jeremymcdonald.net. My phone number is up there if you want to take a picture of it. All my social media, my books are on there. And thank you so much for allowing me to serve you today.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. That was really thought-provoking. I just love that. It's all up to us.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right. Our final speaker for today is Michelle Holling-Brooks. Michelle is founder of Unbridled Change. She is an archetypal consultant and author of Trauma-Informed Enlightenment and its companion oracle deck and guidebook, The Sacred Witness Oracle. Please welcome Michelle.
So I am so grateful to be here, and wow, I am just blown away by everything in this beautiful conference. And I want to kind of bring forward what you've heard from pretty much everyone, and Reverend Norma, when she talked about the seeker. We are all on a seeker journey. We are on that journey to remember, to find ourselves, and to embody ourselves. And to that soul that Jeremy was just talking about, I like to call myself a soul activist, is because we are here to remember that we are both ourself, our personal self. We are a collective self. We are a soul. We are a collective soul. We are all of those things. But that journey of remembrance, whew, that can be a doozy. And that is where our spiritual transformation experiences and awakening, that's their role, to be in there. And it's part of this archetypal pattern that is within each of us. So this seeker's journey, this transformational change that we are on. I love this image. This is one of the cards from the Sacred Witness Oracle. And it holds within it so much truth that in the spiritual awakening is this little seed, this seed that gets kind of plotted into our timeline. It is there. It's like almost like a turkey little timer that goes ding at some point in our life, that contract awakens, and we are set on a journey to remember, to evolve, to step into who we truly be. And in that moment, we have a choice. Do we engage it? Do we allow ourselves to start to grow and awaken and take that chance to come out of the form that we have been sitting in, waiting for the awakening that is already built within us, and let it start to take root? Let it start to allow itself to expand and to start to push against the confines of our existence, how we see ourselves, who we see ourselves to be, how we see ourselves in relation to others and others in relations to us. And that is that journey of coming to break through that surface and to pop our head above the quote unquote muck of that 3D world and allow ourselves to start to recognize that there is so much more than what we've experienced and that struggle that we've been feeling. And at that point, we get to expand and work. And here's the little owl, which is a sacred witness in my oracle. And we get to see and we get to witness and expand and work with elements that we've never known were there, but we could feel and we were searching for and working for. And ultimately, we get to grow and be in our full form. But then the interesting thing is we're asked to start again and again and again. And so while we think, oh, if I can have this awakening experience, if I can, like Jeremy was saying, have that ability to like step into an out of body or this, that, and the other, then I'll be able to fill my fulfillment. It's a never ending journey. So we want to let go of that promised land seeking. But that promised land seeking is something that we all fall into because that's what we're taught within our collective, especially if you're born in the Western culture, is we're taught to strive to make a goal, to work our way towards that. And so, of course, we pick that same template up and we put it over here on the spiritual journey and that awakening, that consciousness. And that can get us in a tricky trap, right? And so we're going to talk about these in a moment. The first part, many of you have probably already felt, it is that call. It is that moment where we have a break of that mundane, monotonous movement of how we've been conditioned from in utero and throughout the experiences of our life to see the world. Some of us were maybe fortunate enough to have a parent that was in this beautiful world. And so they brought us that awakening from the beginning. But many of us came up in very, very different circumstances. And what does that look like? And in that moment, we have an opportunity to break out of that human condition. For me, one of these moments, and I've had multiple ones throughout my lifetime, but one came at 23 when I was so lost in that sea of trauma and past pains. And all I saw was that Earth was a torture chamber and anything but full of love and light and the ability to be there. And at 23, all I knew was that I just wanted it to stop. I knew this wasn't reality. I didn't know how to bridge the gap between what I felt and what I was witnessing and feeling. And it all felt like too much. And so I took a handful of pills, passed out on the basement floor of the apartment that I was staying in at the time. And that is where the universe intervened for a third time, really, with a near-death experience. And my beloved companion, Baron, German Shepherd, he licked into my mouth, triggered a vomit response, and brought me into that place where I ended up throwing up all of the pills. And I saw a vision when I opened my eyes and I looked at him, and I saw this beautiful being of light. And I heard him say to me, "Why do you not love her the way I love her?" And I know that animals don't lie because I do communicate with animals. And I knew that what he was showing me was true, that this beautiful light being that I felt all this love coming from, even in that moment when I didn't value my life, this part of me still valued my life. And it was weeping for me and it wanted me to feel that love. And looking at Baron and those intense German Shepherd eyes, he wanted me to feel that love. And it was so foreign, so cut off. And there just seemed to be oceans and oceans and oceans between that. A little disappointed, I went into the shower, washed out the pills and the vomit. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking back and feeling that liminal space of that love. What would that feel like? What would that look like? This was my call. And as I wiped down the bathroom mirror from all of the steam, and I caught that glimpse, that out-of-body experience where I saw this ghost, this hollow shell of a person looking back at me. No value, no worth, feeling completely used and abused by life. And I thought, wow, she's loved. I don't know who she is. I don't know how to get this person that I'm seeing to this other side, but I know that I want to go. And I know that I want to find her. And that seeker's call woke up. Now, the problem is, as I crossed that threshold from the bathroom back into the bedroom to try to find something to put on, I had a bit of a problem because I didn't understand. I didn't know how to close that gap. And that is the seeker's journey, right? And so I went on a journey to be like, okay, I was in my master's program working in social work at the time. So I dove into what is the mind and what is healing trauma work, and dove back into there. I went into like spirituality and shamanism. And if there was a place, we go to at conferences like this beautiful conference, and that's why it's so important that this is here, is because we search. We need new words. We need new thoughts. We need new perceptions and ways of being that we can allow ourselves to step into that movement. But in that search for meaning, we want to keep finding a way to have it be the way. We keep trying to put that three-dimensional labeling pieces back on top of a place that is not meant to be held. It's supposed to be ever-changing. That fifth law of creation, constant motion. As soon as we get something, the universe says, great, amazing, let's go to the next step. Great, amazing, let's expand, include, expand, include, expand. And so we go on initiation after initiation. And if you look at this image, you see the snake, and he's looking back at this part of that has yet to be shed. And that's that place of complacency that we get in. We're like, it's good enough. The snake's like halfway out. He's like in part of his real world. And he's like, okay, this is good. And yet the universe says we don't want to be half there. And so it keeps inviting us into looking deeper, understanding, finding those versions of ourselves that once were beautiful. They served. I think back to those years of like 13 to 23 for me. I call them the abuse years. And in those years, I have so much love and respect for those Michelles now. I didn't back then, but now I can see the skins that she had to wear and the steps that she had to take. And so think in this moment, the different initiations you've been on since you've started on this journey, and the places where you've been kind of lulled into that complacency. And then also that something woke you up, something got you to look back at yourself and say, you know what? I want to keep going. And that is the stage that is often overlooked in the seeker journey, which is the redefining and the recalibrating. I call this finding our North Star, because the call is there to wake us up. And we have such a divide. That first 10 years of my journey, I was seeking outside myself. Give me the answers, give me the words, help me become the quote better person so that I'm worthy of that love, of that being that I want. And then I had another awakening experience from beautiful White Oak, who is a dear, dear soul companion to me. And sitting under White Oak said to me, Michelle, you are in a body for a reason. Live fully where you are planted. And what I was doing was actually disembodying myself with all the practices and all the different ways of being. And it was a wake-up call, a rediscovery, an invoking for me to bring all that I needed to go find, these new thoughts, these new words, these new paradigms, all back in and say, can I live that in my body, in my life? And that is that integration, that homecoming. Can we bring the teachings back into our life? And this is what you've heard from everybody in this conference so far, and probably tomorrow. Can we bring it, come home to our body? It's not to transcend and leave the body. It's to come back and bring that energy into our physical form, to manifest it through our heart to our life. The body of us extends past us into our life, into every frequency that we walk and we live. And allowing it to be exactly what it is with our frequency, exactly what it is. And so could I allow myself to merge with daily life? And that is the seeker's journey, the promise that is held within every seeker. So if you're out there and you're like, oh, Michelle, I'm in the messy middle of this, is know that there's a promise held within every seeker's journey, that the power, the knowledge, the wisdom that you are seeking outside of yourself is within you. And that's that daily call, that living that mystical life through us every day, allowing ourselves to stretch our tattered wings, allowing ourselves to live that day fully from that day, seeing what will be there and what is in there. So my question for you, is to pause and take this moment. What stage of the journey is calling to you? Knowing that we literally rinse and repeat like a spiral, suffering and coming back through and over, each time expanding and going deeper. In that first initial call, that kind of bigger wake up, aha, that that I need new words, I need new thoughts, I need new ideas. That place of trials, I call it the lion tigers oh my section, where we are working. That place where we allow ourselves to be redirected, to let go of the initial call and recognize that there is a deeper call, a call into our life and into our body. So I thank you for your time. I hope that this is helpful. And yeah, this is me, Michelle Holling-Brooks with Unbridled Change, and all that good stuff.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. That really was inspiring. And the Oracle deck, it's very beautiful cards. That's going to be a wonderful tool for people to use. Well, we now have a few minutes for a Q&A. So, audience, I hope you have put your questions in the chat. And I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Brian Sackett, and he will lead our Q&A session. Brian?
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate it. And thanks to all your panelists for really interesting presentations. So let me start with Kimberly. And so healing is about, among other things, belief. So what do you say to people, for instance, who have had STEs and believe in the power of spiritual healing, even see themselves as healed, but say that their cancer still persists?
If their cancer or any kind of illness is still persisting, I'm not sure what I'm saying to them. I mean, I think our own healing experience has to do with our own protocols after they've had a healing. One healing, two healings, three healings. I'm not, I'm a conduit for the healing. So the healing that I do goes through me, through the Holy Spirit. And when you receive the healing, I don't know if you've ever had a healing from a healer like me, but you receive a healing, you feel it. If it's visible, if it's not visible, you go to a doctor, you get your blood work back, or the doctor will say the results that you are healed, and say it comes back, like you say, the cancer comes back. They don't, I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've never had really anybody come back to me and say, I'm so upset with you. My cancer came back. Normally, there's a responsibility to your healing, meaning you change your lifestyle, you work on your diet. I feel like also there has to be a strong faith in your healing. And in my book, I really tap into that. And also understanding that it's not your fault that you're sick. You didn't do anything wrong. Since my near-death experience, I battle illness also, and things that they told me I would never be healed. I'm just the conduit for the healing. As we know, Jesus and other ascending masters did healings too. I think that's an excellent question. And for also people that are going through sicknesses right now or having things that are going on in their life, I don't agree with some other healers out there, or people that talk about receiving healing and saying it just didn't work, it's not working, because you can't say that. You have to understand that healing takes time. Energy frequency takes time to receive. And back in the days of Catherine Kuhlman and Mary Baker Eddy and Jesus, people doubted. People doubted Jesus Christ. They still do. If you look on Wikipedia, they don't even believe Jesus existed. So the answer is, say, I am healed, and believe it.
All right, great. Thanks very much, Kimberly. Okay, so this question is for Meredith. And in one of your spiritually transformative experiences, it sounds like you changed your focus from your body to being love and light. Your body disappeared and you were just the love and light. Uh, can you experience this at will now?
Can't quite experience it as will now,
At
but
will.
I always remember it. So when I'm meditating, I can go into that blissful place. It's not as if I can, make it happen at will, but it's something you never forget. So it accesses all sorts of feelings of bliss. It's like you can't not know it once you know it. Right, Kimberly?
Yeah, you can
Uh,
always tell when I can always tell when I've worked
Right,
on it,
Michelle?
that it's going to stay healed
Yes,
or
but I
somebody's
don't.
going to go back to the third dimension.
yeah. Great.
I think it's a bit of a gift when this happens to you. And, after it happened to me, I went running around to priests, rabbis, and monks, and they all told me different things. The priest said, well, you weren't brought up in a strict religious environment, so you were open-minded and it was a gift. And the rabbi said, who am I to say that didn't happen to you? Moses was talking to a burning bush. You were used to being an artist and transcending, so God gave you a gift. And the Buddhist monk said, I don't know what it means, but it happens to me all the time. So it sounds like a joke I made up, but that was my real life experience. So yeah, I think I'm very grateful it happened to me once. I don't want to be greedy. So it changed my life irrevocably in many, many ways.
Great. Thank you, Meredith. It's reminds me of a minor pitfall. We have these big transformative experiences and then we're looking to reduplicate them. And that takes us away from what is and what's really happening. But okay, this question is for Jeremy. And it's, how would you apply what you've learned about the inner to physical healing specifically? In other words, your own healing.
Well, first of all, I look at any type of pain or anything I'm going through. I just always say that's pay attention inward now. And if I feel a pain or some anxiety, I already know, hey, this is a journey. So I start to look at it and say, well, what is it I need to do next? So one of the things I'll give you an example of is in 2024, I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic. And so some people will say, well, you shouldn't say I am this. And I'm always like, whatever. What you need to do, what I feel in my own journey, is I just started paying attention to my inner voice. Well, my inner voice said to call my functional medicine doctor. And my inner voice said, jump down in there. I have a book called The Metaphysical Anatomy that told me that diabetes is about anger towards my service to others. And so I had to start looking at that and also going to my allopathic doctor. So it was a combination of that. So give me an example. My A1C was almost 8, and now it's at 5.9. So now I'm now considered to be a pre-diabetic. And I've also lost 70 pounds in the last year. So it's one of those things where I think you follow your inner voice, and your inner voice will tell you exactly what to do. And then you start peeling back the layers of, how did I get here in the first place? And not to shame yourself, but just to say this was an experience, because we are spiritual beings having human experience. So I think oftentimes we're looking for healing in a sense that whatever it is that's going through your body is a blessing, because it's taking you down a doorway or a path to understand that in these last few years of understanding this type 2 diabetes has been the greatest adventure of my life, and to show that I'm healthier now than I was probably when I was 30 years old says something. All my blood work and everything comes back green instead of red or high. The cholesterol level that was high is now green. And it's one of those things, because what if you start doing the inner work, you start making better choices. So I'm no longer going to McDonald's. I'm making dinner at home. I'm now getting organic food and starting to talk what Kimberly is saying. I'm eating more supplements and things like that and doing the energy work. And so it's twofold. It's body, mind, and spirit. And so your healing, to apply it into this world, is to follow that inner voice, because there's a voice in you telling you exactly what to do. Well, now follow it. And that's the answer to that. So.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. That's very encouraging. Um, okay, a question for Michelle. Michelle, your bio says uh, that you use trauma-informed methods combined with spirituality to help people find, live their fully loving and authentic uh, life. So could you speak more about what are specifically the trauma-informed methods? Great, thanks very much, Michelle. Uh, we've only got a couple questions in the chat, so I'm going to go back to Jeremy for a minute with this one. So Bethany wants to know, what is one thing I can do to confirm when I am hearing my sovereign self?
That's a good question, actually. You'll know the sovereign self is not about judging anybody. It's not about judging you. It's a very loving, calm voice. So if there's any sense of criticism, Bethany, like that says, oh, you should be doing this, that kind of stuff, that's not the sovereign voice. The sovereign voice says exactly what you need to do, and it's very direct and very clear. But it's loving at the same time. It's kind of like your loving parents saying, hey, I need you to be home by 8 o'clock. There's no judgment, there's no anything. It's just very clear directions. So that's your higher self saying to you, hey, take this left-hand turn. Now you can make the right-hand turn, but there's going to be traffic down there. And the left-hand turn maybe takes you a little bit out of your way, but you get to see all these cool things like the ocean or the mountains or whatever. And so what we get caught up in is what we think we should do, or we listen to other people. And you'll always know when somebody's not operating from their sovereign self because it's critical, or they're in judgment. Well, I wouldn't do that because that could cause this. Well, that's to me a fear voice. But when it's very direct and it says, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking," da 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 da, then they're really telling you. So it's a very subtle feeling, and it's almost like you ever had a synchronicity and you feel like everything just came into oneness in that moment. That's your sovereign voice. That's your sovereign voice trying to talk to you. And it doesn't always just come in like I was giving a session with somebody the other day, and she says, well, how do you know if something's speaking to you? Well, I saw over here I was in a craft room and I saw four handles on craft boxes. And I said, there's 6 boxes there, but I can only see the four handles. And I said, well, she goes, well, what is that telling you? I said, well, behind you, it happens to be 2:02 p.m. That's a 4. So I'm seeing 4 there, 4 there. There's also in the angel right here hanging there, there's the 2 points at the angel wings, and the bottom part is the 2 feet. So that's 4. So I said, what happens? The universe starts showing you symbols that you're in the right direction. Well, 4 to me means balance. I said, so where are you out of balance in your life? And so that's where the sovereign voice is constantly guiding you with symbols and a passionate voice, and it's always guiding you at some point in time. So I hope that helps.
Great, thank you. We have time for a couple more questions. Linda Kimberly wants to know, there's a book about the reincarnation of Edgar Casey. Do you feel he is still here on Earth or only in another realm?
I didn't understand. Is saying
No,
Winfrey or David
no,
Wolf?
no, no. Edgar Casey.
Okay, the
It's,
reincarnation of Edgar Casey, those were both my friends that wrote that book.
yeah,
And they both crossed over. So that's what I thought you were asking about that.
no. I think she's asking, is Edgar Casey reincarnated?
Okay, yeah, because I don't know if you knew I channel Edgar
Yeah,
Casey.
yeah.
Is Edgar Casey reincarnated? That's interesting because my friends that wrote the book, The Reincarnation of Edgar Casey, they just recently crossed over. They just recently crossed over. No, I don't feel Edgar Casey, he's saying no to me right now. I am he's using me to do the work I do. Going back to Jeremy's answer, when we get that intuitive hit, like how they put me on the spot with doing my root cause scans and work, people will often say, how can you do that, Kimberly, where you go out and you scan people's bodies and your left breast has cancer? Okay, so how can I be that bold to do that, right? And say to somebody, or the brain tumor that's going on in your brain is a myeloma, or you have a mitral valve. So is that Kimberly doing that? No, I'm hearing that whisper in my ear, and that's Casey and other doctors coming through and whispering that to me. So that's a fact that what Jeremy's saying, when you push away those uh, hits, make sure that when you hear good information coming at you, um, you want to go with that soft voice, those good hits. And that's very important to right now understand. I'm channeling to you guys. If you can get in development classes, intuitive development classes, I teach them, other people teach them. It's good to understand the good hits that you're getting and the negative hits. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Kimberly. So this will be our last question for Meredith. How does your enlightening experience show up for you when dealing with phase of life changes or even thinking about the end of earthly life?
That's an amazing question. I think that death is one of the most chronic avoidances, like the stage of denial. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's something that happens to everybody else. It doesn't happen to you. But it's true that as I get older and my body changes more and more, especially having been a professional dancer and a fitness person, I miss the freedom that I had in my body. But I'm very well aware that the physical changes and the limitations are an invitation to actually understand yourself and not define yourself by things like your personality or your body or all these things that you've grown so attached to. So yes, absolutely. It's actually a blessing in a way to have had a blissful experience. It gives you hope that in my belief system, I believe that when you die, I'm going to be one with the light. Other people might think other things, but hard for me not to think that.
Great.
So the other thing I want to say is that spirituality and God, whatever you want to call God, will come to you in any form that you can see it, because it is not limited. So if you think God is a beautiful blue heron flying overhead, that's going to be fine. That'll be your message. So, yes, if it's your mother, Jeremy, giving you a message, then that's the message. And if it's Edward Casey, I just think you got to go with it. Trust and be open. So
Well, thank you
that's
very
what it is.
much. Great. Thank you very much, Meredith. And thank all of the panelists. It was a really both illuminating and uplifting panel. I really appreciate it.